Greetings, Black family, and welcome to On the Wake Up Radio. I am your host, DC Radical One, and you have entered the center. Shout out to Raw on the boards, and shout out to our wonderful producer, Cindy Ashby. You can check us out at www.onthewakeupradio.com. We are also on SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes Podcast, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, and now iHeartRadio at On the Wake Up Radio. The call-in number for this show is 646-547-1305. As for myself, again, I am DC Radical One. You can follow me on Instagram at DC Radical One. Also, if you would like to donate to the radio station in order to keep the content free, you can donate to 5, 10, 12, 20, 50, 100, or $1 million. The choice is yours. It's a labor of love, but indeed we live in a capitalist society. If you appreciate the content, the free content, please help us keep the message uncensored and free. You can donate through PayPal at onthewakeupradio@gmail.com. Also, if you would like an advertisement slot, please hit us up at onthewakeupradio@gmail.com. Now, the topic of today's show will be Cointelpro 101. And this is a discussion I've been meaning to have for a while. I had some different people ask me about things related to it. And so we're going to talk about not only the counterintelligence program of J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI that ran from approximately 1955 to 1971, but also the history of surveillance and disruption of Black organizations in America, at least from that we know of, at least from the 1910s till now. We have no reason to believe that these types of activities have stopped taking place. And in fact, we would be very foolish and immature to think that these type of programs of surveillance and disruption and attempting to neutralize threats, which is the type of wording that they often use, we would be foolish to think that these types of activities have been stopped by the United States government. So again, when we talk about Cointelpro, we're not just going to talk about the official counterintelligence program of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, but we're going to also go into, a history before that. And of course, we can't talk about Cointelpro without talking about the legacy of the man known as J. Edgar Hoover. And the reason that J. Edgar Hoover is so important is because of, number one, he's the one that initiated the program, but also the reality that J. Edgar Hoover, long before Cointelpro, he was involved in disrupting Black organizations for years before this. And, this is a history that kind of been forgotten because J. Edgar Hoover was part of the Bureau of Investigation, which was the precursor to the FBI. And as a member of the Bureau of Investigation, I believe he was one of the investigators into the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League, also known as the Marcus Garvey organization. And so now, it's really eye-opening because we see that this man, maybe more so than any other single individual in modern American history, say the last 100 years, has been responsible for the disruption of Black leaders, Black organizations, surveillance of Black leaders of Black organizations, and what they would say is the neutralization of black leaders and black organizations. And so what we're going to do, we're going to get a little bit into the history. We're going to talk about some of the things that we know the government did, some of the things we suspect the government did. And then we're going to talk about how these things work, the system that they have in place. What do they do, and what are some things to look out for if you are a organizational leader, activist, things like that. Because we still see, how can I put it, strange things happening today. And so I think a lot of times we don't have the history, we're not forearmed. And so this would just give us a little bit to arm ourselves and to be aware of certain things. Now, this does not mean that your organization still can't be destroyed. It does not mean that we can't fall victim to different traps and things of that nature. But at least you'll be forearmed with the knowledge and make you think. And for those who are unaware of this history, and the government would never do that crowd. Everything that I'm going to say, it can be researched, and you can check it out for yourself. So let's really get into a little bit of the history, especially dealing with J. Edgar Hoover. Now, as I stated previously, J. Edgar Hoover was a member of the precursor to the FBI and was one of the investigators of Marcus Garvey and the UNIA, and one of the people that helped develop the trumped up charges, which got Marcus Garvey arrested, convicted, and eventually deported from the United States of America. And the thing that's deep about it, of course, is that we're talking about in the 1920s, I guess, maybe starting in the 19-teens. And so it becomes readily apparent and readily obvious that J. Edgar Hoover had a lifetime commitment to the destruction of black leadership. And unfortunately, what it also tells us is that he also, and the government, has always been able to find black people who were willing, on some level, even if they were coerced or however you want to say it, were willing to aid and abet in the crimes against black leadership, to help destroy our organizations, to spy on our people, to be, as Garvey, a word he wants to use, to be stool pigeons. That's an old term from way back in the day, against our people. And if you know any of the history, and I did a lecture last weekend dealing with Death and Rebirth of the Goddess Black Woman, and one of the people I had in there was Queen Mother Moore, and she talked about the opposition that Garvey got from the went to Louisiana, and how the people protected Garvey from the police. But I just bring that up to just go to show that the authorities were in opposition to Garvey and his movement and his ideas and his goals, going, like I said, nearly 100 years ago. And then the J. Edgar Hoover attack, and then the neutralization of Garvey, and then the falling apart of that movement. And this would be a pattern that we would see, again, long before the actual naming of the program as Cointelpro. And you can even go up into the era of the Nation of Islam, after the man known as W.D. Fard, or W.D. Ford, or W.D. Farad, or W.F. Muhammad, take your pick. After his disappearance, and then the taking over of the organization by Elijah Muhammad, we see that the authorities, the FBI, were surveilling Elijah Muhammad. Eventually he would be locked up for draft evasion. And as the Nation of Islam rose in popularity, we see that the authorities were They were even spying on Malcolm X in jail, which, a lot of people miss that, because his brother and a couple of his family members had joined the Nation of Islam. And of course, Malcolm the family had a history of doing race work, going back to his father, who was a member of the UNIA, who was murdered is believed by Klansmen, as his body was thrown underneath a trolley car. But this counterattack, this counteroffensive by the government, we see there's a long history of government interference in the affairs of black leaders. And the Nation of Islam was probably one of the most infiltrated black organizations in history. It is believed that the third in command at the time behind Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X was indeed FBI informant. And the whole situation that arose between Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X, the FBI helped fuel the fire, help if not help instigate it, help make it worse. Many of the staunch followers of Elijah Muhammad fell hook, line, and sinker into the trap. That Malcolm history and assassination of Malcolm X is very detailed history, and I can't get into all of that. But just let it be said that not only the FBI, but also the CIA were heavily involved. There were attempts on Malcolm X's life outside of the country. And generally speaking, when there are activities that take place outside of the country, generally speaking, those are the Central Intelligence Agency. And then where there are situations that take place inside of the country, those are generally the Bureau, as they like to call themselves. Now, the counterintelligence program, the official documents say that started in 1955 and ended in 1971. So we look at that time frame, and it said it was supposed to be started to investigate the Communist Party and Communist Party activities. But it appears that quickly black extremists and black radicals came quickly under the eye of this program. And of course, this is a time where we're talking about the rise of the freedom movement, which became the civil rights movement, the rise of the Black Power movement, where we have people like Robert F. Williams, eventually, as well as Malcolm X, as well as eventually the Black Panther Party, Republic of New Africa, Revolutionary Action Movement, and various young black radical groups, US Organization, all of these groups. And all of these groups will be under surveillance. And I remember reading, I believe it was Bobby Seale's book, Seize the Time. And Bobby Seale had met with Stokely Carmichael at the time. And he was like, watch this. So I believe they came to DC, in fact. Interesting, yeah. Some of the Panthers came to DC. Met with Stokely Carmichael. And he was like, yeah, they got a bug on my car somewhere. I can't find it, but check this out. So they rolled around DC, and Stokely Carmichael was driving all crazy, driving fast, and, switching lanes and turning and swerving around. And then he's like, watch this. And he stopped in front of a building. And they stopped and they sat there for like a minute or two. And then a car that had been following them came around the corner and stopped. And he's like, see, I told you. They got something on my car. I lost them. They're still here. And so I just tell that story just to say that this is real life. This is real life things. This is stuff that's documented. It's stuff that people who were under surveillance have documented, have put in books and writings. And also, you can go to the FBI's website. You can look up the Cointelpro papers, and the information is there. And so, you know, one of the things that we should never do, obviously, if we have any sense, is we should never think, one, the government will never do that. Secondly, we should never think, well, if the government did it then, they would never do it again. Because obviously that is false if we just look at the history. And of course, the reason I say that if we just look at the history is because, again, I showed you the surveillance of Marcus Garvey, and then 50 years later, the surveillance of Malcolm X and the surveillance on the Black Panther Party. And one of the things that J. Edgar Hoover wrote that one of the things they wanted to do with the program was to prevent the rise of the Black Messiah, someone that could unify and electrify the various Black organizations and the Black masses. And so I believe that this has long been even before this has long been the idea of the European, even into slavery. You don't want someone in a slave system, like you don't want a Nat Turner who could, let's just say Nat Turner had taken over. Let's say Nat Turner had a won. Let's say they got the weapons. Let's say they slaughtered all the whites in that county. And then news got out and he sent people to neighboring counties and they did the same thing. Let's say you just take over Virginia, for example, right? And a place like Haiti sees this, and then they come in, and then you have like Black people here and Haitians and fighting it. You can't have that if you're the United States of America. You can't have that if you're a sovereign nation. And so when they talk about the Black Messiah and talking about stopping the rise of the Black Messiah, and I believe later in it, the document says that there's going to be a Black leader. It's going to be one that we make. And I think that part is very key because, you know, in this day and time, I think more so probably than any day and time that I can see as far as our history here, there's a great lack of organic, sincere leadership in the Black community. And the organic and sincere leadership that exists in the Black community has a lack of an organic, sincere followership. And what I mean by that is, due to various circumstances, including integration, I think that Black people now have a harder time believing in and following and accepting Black people as being sincere and being for Black people. And what's even more deep and what's more distressing is many of our people, even if they see someone that is sincere, if the person is actually too much for Black people, they're going to be turned away because of their desire, there's still their innate love for the enemies of Black people. So this is what's deep. The sincere Black leader has to be, if he's truly in love with Black people, has to be in opposition of not only those people who are detrimental to Black people, but those things that are detrimental to Black people. And so in this day and time, with our people really, this integration thing really has us turned around. And we're really engaging in a lot of behaviors that aren't traditionally what we do. It's really difficult now for people to follow a sincere Black leader because he's going to challenge our behaviors, and he's going to challenge our beliefs, and he's going to challenge the things that we hold dear, and he's going to ask us to make sacrifices that many of us probably aren't willing to make. And so also now in the age of the internet, it makes a Cointelpro-like program much easier um, to initialize and actuate, because it's so much easier to do surveillance. And of course, we had we had different programs be exposed by I believe was Edward Snowden. I believe that's his name. If I'm butchering his name, forgive me. But Edward Snowden working for NSA, and he talks about basically all of our electronics at this point are just surveillance instruments. All of his surveillance instruments. Your cell phone's a surveillance instrument. They got cameras everywhere, all over the place, especially here in Washington, D.C. You literally can barely go out your house. If your window's not covered, you probably can't even use a bathroom without a camera seeing it. And then they probably have some type of special infrared for that, so even though they can see you, even if they can't see you. And so with that, it's very much easier for them to surveil. I mean, we're at this point, we're in a surveillance state. Everyone who has any intelligence knows that, and it's to the point where, like, they're almost phasing out non-quote-unquote smart TVs, for an example. And they've already said that the TVs have microphones, and the microphones pick up what's going on in your house. So then the stuff is going somewhere, and if it's going somewhere, the government has access to wherever it's going. This goes without saying. Not only that, but you carry your phone everywhere you go. So your phone is pinging the different cell towers. So it's basically giving away your location almost at all times. Well, with that being said, who knows when the microphone's on and when it's not? I know I turn my phone off a lot, but who even knows if just because your phone is off, it can't record? Like, who really knows? And I'm sure it's in the interest of the phone companies to not even reveal this information. So with that being said, of course, we're in this new technological era. We're in a surveillance state. And it is almost a state where it's almost impossible to be in America and not be under constant surveillance electronically. And then, the include, the satellites that can fly over and beam down on your head, literally. Google they have satellites that they use for their Google Maps, and I've known people who years ago, and this was years ago, looked on Google Maps and saw and were like, hey, wait a minute, that's me leaving my house or getting in my car or getting out of my car or something like that. And so that just goes to show how powerful the surveillance technology is. So with that being said, you're probably wondering, well, if we're all on surveillance, so forth, so on anyway, why even tell me about this counterintelligence program? Well, because that's just the surveillance aspect of it. And so while we are indeed all under surveillance, of course, I'm sure they have ways to focus in on single individuals, because just because everyone's under surveillance, it still makes it extremely difficult to sift through all that data for one person unless you focus on that person. But there's another thing that has really made it easier for the disruption of Black organizations, and that's social media. And the reason I say that is because social media allows people who we really don't know, and we really can't test their sincerity, and we're really not sure, to be able to come up and at least be a spokesperson and assume a partial mantle of leadership in our communities. And so we've seen various people come up literally out of nowhere. And that's not to say that people aren't sincere, but the thing is, you don't know. So you see, like, you can come on social media and you see a person, you don't know who they are, but you look, they got 50,000 followers on Instagram, or maybe more, maybe 100,000. And it's funny, Instagram, it seemed like a lot of people that did have a lot of followers, a lot of pages have been taken down, but that's a whole nother discussion. Or a person has, 100,000 on Twitter, or, whatever the case may be. And this person, they make memes and They do videos and their stuff goes viral. You see their memes everywhere, or their videos everywhere, and even will jump social media platforms, and go from Facebook to Instagram, or Instagram to Twitter, or Twitter to Instagram, so forth, so on. And we'll see these people, and they, like I said, they become spokesmen, and they put ideas in the atmosphere, and they put information in the atmosphere. And really, there's like as much as we live in an information age and you can find out anything about anybody, it's still very difficult to measure the sincerity of a person based on their social media, simply because people can change. A person like Malcolm X would go to jail as one person, come out and become another person. Who's to say that someone can't do that in the modern context? So then it makes it very difficult. And then, and so we have these people, and they become, I guess, internet celebrities and pseudo leaders. But the thing is, the difference is that these people, like in the past, at least very few of them, have seemed to be able to organize people in any significant manner, and to be able to do anything of value, and to bring anything, to manifest anything in the tangible realm, shall we say. And so, but one of the things that happens, because many people with knowledge do know the history of Cointelpro, it also makes it that much more difficult, because it has increased the suspicion amongst black people, and make black people look at any person who they don't like. And one of the first things we do when we don't like a person is what we do. We throw the agent label on. And people throw the agent label on, so-and-so agent, this one agent, that one agent. And a lot of times we may have studied, on a surface level, but we really don't look at the methodologies of how the European infiltrates, and how the infiltration takes place, how they break down organizations, and how they eventually destroy organizations and leaders. And so what we're going to do now, we're going to take this break, and then after we take this break, we're going to get into the methodologies of how they do these attacks on black leadership. And we're going to go into that, and then we're going to look at some examples and look at some infamous people from our community. And then we'll use that to be able to weigh in about whether or not people are or are not agents. And, we'll just have a better understanding of how not only Cointelpro worked, but how just the whole government disruption of black leaders and black organizations work. So what we're going to do now, we're going to take this quick break, and then we will come back and get into that breakdown. All right, brothers and sisters, thank you.
You're listening to On the Wake Up Radio. And now an announcement by Yurima Karama about sistersuptownbookstore.com. Enjoy.
Peace, love, and life, family. It should always be our duty to shout out those individuals, businesses, or organizations that are providing great service, particularly in the black community. And today we want to shout out Sisters Uptown Bookstore and Cultural Center at Dam Avenue. Sisters Uptown Bookstore and Cultural Center is not just a bookstore. This place is a cultural center. It's a healing center. It also provides book clubs, book signings, and even meditation sessions. Their mission is that they deal in the spiritual aspects of things. So Sisters Uptown Bookstore also pertains to black history and culture, and provides services that help deal with life's trials. Jennifer Wilson, the founder, says, "We provide resources to members of the community to nurture their minds, hearts, and souls with present and past works of gifted African-American authors and other great authors and intellectuals, including masters of spoken word. We have successfully become a positive staple in the community of Washington Heights. We are not just a bookstore. We are a community resource center for the exchange of information and ideas. Their motto is knowledge is key. We provide an educational, emotional, spiritual, and loving environment to our diverse community where all are welcome. January 1st, 2019 is the onset of our 19th year. So please, family, check them out. That's Sisters Uptown Bookstore and Cultural Center located at 1942 Amsterdam Avenue. Peace.
Greetings, Black family, and welcome back to On the Wake Up Radio. Again, I am your host, DC Radical One, and you again have entered the center. Again, shout out to Raw on the boards and to our wonderful producer, Cindy Ashby. Now, we're continuing our discussion with Cointelpro 101, and we're going to get into the 4 methodologies of neutralizing an organization that I have identified in my study of the counterintelligence program. And so these 4 points, and we're going to go through them very quickly and then give some examples. Number 1 is character assassination. And character assassination is done on a number of levels. It can be done through utilization of the media and also by spreading rumors within whatever community that the target of the Cointelpro program happens to be in. So let's say, for example, they are investigating, let's say they're investigating a white supremacist group, and they may spread rumors that certain person secretly has a black child or something like that. So they're not 100% with the cause, or that a person may secretly be, of an organization may secretly be a Jew, or things like that. That's part of the character assassination program. For Black people, you know, again, the putting out the rumor that so-and-so is an agent, which of course we are, as Black people, because we've been taught to not trust each other, we're very quick to pick up on, or say that so-and-so has been with non-Black women, or, you know, question so-and-so's heritage, he's not really Black, or to spread rumors between organizations and to say that so-and-so does not like this organization and this person doesn't like this organization, and to try to cause confusion and to try to get the 2 organizations to fight each other, which they did with the Panthers and the US organization. And also, it works even better if they happen to have a person in one or both organizations, and before you know it, you have 2 Black organizations going from a point of ideological differences to physical violence. And so the character assassination program, whether again they're utilizing the media to try to paint a person as a criminal and or a terrorist, or to even use it in accord with one of the later steps that I'm going to include in order to help neutralize a person in that manner. The character assassination aspect is a very much a key aspect and a key component of Cointelpro, and it's something that they use as part of their bag of dirty tricks. And they use it in such a way that it becomes difficult to tell the truth from a lie, and it becomes difficult to tell where things come from. And, you know, in this day and age, it's even more difficult, because if you put something on the internet, it becomes viral. It becomes very difficult to trace. I mean, one of the things I think about is we have these memes and different things that come on the internet. They become viral. They go everywhere. And many times you have absolutely no idea where this stuff comes from. And so, you know, that phenomenon shows how easy it is to implement this aspect of Cointelpro, which is character assassination. Now, character assassination generally comes first. Basically, if they can assassinate your character, that can stop you from gaining a large followership. And then basically, a lot of times they'll be satisfied with that. They can assassinate your character. Sometimes they'll do it multiple times if they have an opportunity. If they have a person in your organization that's dissatisfied, they can use him or her to even give more volume, if you will, to the accusations, the rumors, the innuendos, and get that person to speak different things, or even to reveal certain things that haven't been previously revealed. And then that person unwittingly, and then sometimes wittingly, becomes part of the character assassination program that's taking place. Now, in addition to the character assassination, number two, and what I believe is a four-step process, four-step methodology that takes place when they want to specifically target a black leader and neutralize a black leader, neutralize a black organization. The next step is economic deprivation. Now, the economic deprivation aspect of it simply means attacking the person or organization monetarily. So the economic deprivation aspect will be, let's say, and in fact, the economic deprivation aspect can go hand in hand with the character following step and the following step, which is the incarceration. So the economic deprivation aspect will be getting you fired from your job, or getting you suspended but not fired from your job, or some type of government action where they give you some type of government penalty for some fines or something, or claim that you have some type of tax issue or things like that. And I say it can go hand in hand with the incarceration, because one of the things they did with the Black Panther Party is they would keep arresting leaders and keep it so the party would have to keep raising money for lawyers and bail and things of that nature. And so more of the money became focused on that, and less of the money would be able to utilize for the programs. And so, I mean, it's a tool, a form of attack, that will eventually, because very few organizations, especially strong revolutionary organizations, receive mass monetary backing from our people, unlike, let's say, churches. It makes it virtually, it cripples your organization. It makes it virtually impossible for you to be effective in whatever your program is, simply because of a lack of money. So again, the economic deprivation it can be used against the individual leader, and or it can be used against the entire organization. And many times, it really depends on the strength of the organization and the strength of the leader. If the leader is one where he is somewhat more isolated, then this economic deprivation can really cripple a person, and just make it to the point, bring a lot of stress on the individual, and makes it very difficult for you to continue to do the work. Next on this list, if these two things, the first two things, the combination thereof, not just one or the other, but together, if those things don't work, the next aspect that you get is incarceration. And so if you look at the type of Marcus Garvey, for example, you start off with character assassination and saying that he's a charlatan and a fraud, and he stole money and this and this and that. Then you had the economic deprivation, the shutting down of different programs, and getting ships that were not seaworthy and some of the other things that cost the organization money, and put them in a bind economically. And then after that, you had the incarceration. So the incarceration, you have the different aspects where you can be charged, held, your organization or your followership or your supporters raise money. Maybe they get you out on bond. But still at that point, you're in essence in the custody of the government. And then if they can do long-term incarceration, then of course they can neutralize you and in essence take you off the chessboard, which was of course what was done with many Panther leaders. And of course we still have Panther leaders who and influential Panthers who are in jail to this day. We've had Panthers who have served 4 decades long sentences. H. Rap Brown, now known as Jamil Al-Amin, he's still incarcerated. Actually, he was incarcerated either in the late 80s or early 90s, I believe. And if I got the time frame wrong, forgive me for that. But he was someone that the government was interested in long before that, going back to the 60s. And of course, you've had Panther leaders that have been locked up since the 70s and are still incarcerated. Of course, you had Mia Abu Jamal, who was locked up since the 80s. And so this incarceration is not a last step tool, but is a tool that when you absolutely get to the point where the organization is extremely strong, and you not only want to use it as a punitive action, but you also want to use it as a deterrent for anyone who may come behind the individual and try to follow in their footsteps and follow in their legacy and continue their work. It's a way of the Europeans showing, well, okay, yeah, you want to be like so-and-so, you want to follow in their footsteps, yeah, this is what you got to go through. So, we'll see if you're really about it. So the incarceration aspect is something that many of our Black leaders have been through. You can almost everyone going back, Garvey, Elijah, way back in the 20s and 30s. Malcolm X was incarcerated before he got knowledge, but he was incarcerated. Virtually all of the Panthers seemed like they were incarcerated as far as the leadership, and just everyone. Robert F. Williams would have been incarcerated had he not left the country. And so this is a tool. If the character assassination, the economic deprivation, if those aspects of the program do not work satisfactorily, and then, well, you move on to the incarceration. Now, last but not least, if all of these things don't work, if the organization is extremely strong, and even with the removal of certain leaders, the organization still is moving forward, the organization is still growing, the organization is still gaining influence, then last but not least is what they call neutralization. And of course, neutralization just means they killed a person. And I believe, anyway, from my research, that Malcolm X was neutralized by the government. He was definitely under surveillance overseas, and there were people in the Nation of Islam who were working for the government, and of course I believe they helped facilitate the murder of Malcolm X. Also, some of the activities of the police were very suspicious in that time. That was normally a very heavily policed area. It wasn't at that time. There was also the man who was in charge of Malcolm X security was revealed to be not an FBI agent, but an FBI informant, William O'Neill. William O'Neill would actually go on to infiltrate the Panthers and would set them up for what would become the Panther 21 trial that Afeni Shakur, Tupac Shakur's mother, would be a part of. So, that just goes to show you how the infiltration of an organization and how they can use that to neutralize people. And so I believe that the person was in charge of Malcolm X's security and recommended that Malcolm X not do what the Nation of Islam calls check posts, where you check people for weapons. And of course, that turned out to be a fatal mistake on the part of Malcolm X. That's just like the biggest example. Another example is Chairman Fred Hampton, the chairman of Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party. Now that he had an agent that was, I believe, was in charge of security again, if I'm not mistaken. And if I have some of the details a little bit backwards, you forgive me. But this is information that, of course, you can research for yourself and get all the details of what took place. But yeah, he had an informant that was in charge of security. The dude actually wrote out a detailed map of the house that Fred Hampton was in and gave it to the people. And this is what was used by the Chicago Police Department during the raid on Fred Hampton's house where Fred Hampton was murdered. And the thing about it is that not only did he do that, but he also drugged Fred Hampton. But Fred Hampton wasn't even able to defend himself when the police came in, attacked the Panthers, shot up the house. Fred Hampton never even got out of bed. The police went in, saw him. I believe he may have been shot. And then they finished him off, shot him in the back of the head while his pregnant girlfriend was there, and killed him. And then it is reported that the guy that, had did it was like, well, I didn't know what they were going to do, and I didn't know they were going to do that. This type of nonsense, man. This type of Negro behavior. And of course, the man is murdered. He's a martyr. He's an icon. But again, this is not to say that the government wouldn't have neutralized him, but just the fact that our people had a hand in it just goes to show that with a lot of these situations that took place, they try to recruit our people to have a hand in it so that they won't take the brunt of openly murdering our people and being accused of it and being rightly accused of openly murdering our leaders. But they have openly murdered our leaders, whether here or on the continent, like Patrice Lumumba. He was openly murdered by the CIA and the French government. Everyone recognizes this as historical fact. And so, again, I'm not making up things. These are things that have been documented and things that are historical fact. And so now, getting back to it, these are the 4 points or 4 methodologies of the destruction of Black leadership utilized by the intelligence apparatus. Again, character assassination, economic deprivation, incarceration, and neutralization. Of course, surveillance, I didn't put surveillance as one of these things. It kind of goes for itself. As I spoke about earlier, surveillance is an aspect of our lives where everyone now is under surveillance. And so it's just a matter of them honing down and focusing on one individual person. Surveillance goes without saying. But I just wanted to break that down and to give that information to you so that those of you who are activists, those of you who are leaders, those who want to fight for our people and advance the cause of liberation, understand these methodologies, understand how these programs work, understand how they seek to infiltrate organizations, and some of the things you should look for to see if someone's infiltrating. If you happen to have someone who seems to have like all the skills that you're currently missing. So let's just say, for example, let's say your organization and you want to get into more physical training and military training, things like that. And you try different people, the different work, you have a program, but the program's not to the point you want it. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, a guy comes up he comes up in one of your events you have, maybe one of your recruiting events or something like that, or he comes up to one of the leaders who becomes very friendly with him, and then all of a sudden, you talk to him and he has exactly the skill set, like he's former military or former police or something like that. He has all these skills, and he's like, "Oh yeah, brother, I can show everybody how to use weapons. I can do this, I can do that, I can do this." And yeah, well, you like, yeah, well, I can train the security, I can do this and that. And then you like, well, I'm gonna put this brother, I'm gonna make him chief of security. Next thing you know, he's William O'Neill. William O'Neill shit. And so it's one of the things to look for if you have an organization. Be careful of people who have the exact skill set that you need at that moment. Whether it's a person that has, let's say it's a person that there's a finance person. You're struggling with finance. Person comes up. You're like, oh man, yeah, I have a degree in finance and this and that. Or let's say you have trouble with marketing. You're like, oh yeah, I know about this and you should be able to do this and that. If you have a person that comes in that has the exact skill set you need at that moment, I'm not saying they're always an agent. I'm saying be very careful and vet them very thoroughly, because that's one of the things that they do. Another thing, a person come in, they're super gung-ho, they already know everything about your organization, and they're willing to do everything all the time. You got to be careful. That doesn't mean that person is necessarily an agent, but those are some of the characteristics you see, because those type of people are able to raise up the ranks of your organization very quickly and gain influence very quickly, and before you know it, that person is either in charge or in a position where they can disrupt your organization. These are just some of the things you should look for when looking for infiltration of your organization. Another thing, have somebody that come in, that gung-ho, they're with the program and so forth and so on, but it's some other group that they don't like. And almost no one knows that maybe you have a disagreement with this group, but it's not public. And then that person comes up and they're like, they come into the organization, they come to the meetings, they come apart, and then they're like, yeah, man, we should really do something about so-and-so. Man, they always saying something bad about you, man. What you gonna do? Blah, blah, blah. And they're trying to sow discord between you and that other group. Again, it's very dangerous behavior. It's very Cointelpro-ish. So I'm saying, again, it's not necessarily that they are an agent. I'm just pointing out what I would like to call our agent behaviors. And then there's one last aspect of it that I want to talk about real quick, is the sister that comes into the organization and tries to either get close to the leadership or gets to sleeping around in the organization. This is very, very disruptive. You have a sister come in. You have a sister, she's very beautiful. She'll come in, she talks about how much she loves the program. She'll probably come in as a supporter. So she'll come to all your events. She'll support. She'll be a big supporter of the leader. She'll defend them against any type of character assassination or things like that. And then if she can't get to the top leader, let's say, one of the secondary leaders, she'll get very close to him. They may even begin a relationship. Then before you know it, she may go from him to another brother in the organization, and then another, and then it's causing discord because you have jealousy and things like that. And then she may go and deal with someone in a different organization that you have a problem with, causing discord there. Before you know it, you're in conflict with a different organization. And these types of things have already been done between the Panthers and the US organization, for example. So these are some of the things you want to look for. These are some of the Cointelpro, but this is what I call, again, Cointelpro 101, Cointelpro basics. These are the types of activities, methodologies that are used to disrupt programs, disrupt Black leaders, disrupt organizations, and eventually to destroy and neutralize organizations and Black leaders. So with that, brothers and sisters, that pretty much concludes that aspect of the program. Again, the Straight Black Pride movement, where the singles mixer is back on. So the next singles mixer, I believe, is November 9th, 7 p.m., Everlasting Life Cafe, 9185 Central Avenue, 20743. I will be giving more details about that next week. Again, the singles mixers are a monthly event, Straight Black Pride event in the DMV area. And so if you're in the DMV area, you want to come on out, have some fun, meet some people. Maybe you meet somebody interesting. But we always try to have fun. And it's one of our programs, one of our most successful programs, one of the programs that people are most interested in, and one of the programs that people ask us to bring to their city, which is something we may work on in the future. We may bring that to, we already have a couple of cities pointed out. When things are finalized, I'll definitely let you all know. With that being said, I appreciate you all for listening. I appreciate your support. And with that, I say a BB for Hodie and Straight Black Pride.
I ain't no joke.
Imperial Media Collective.
Cindy Ashby Production.
On the wake up.